the World Cup nobody can afford. There has never been a bigger bet than this one. 48 teams, 104 matches, 3 nations, 16 stadiums, an entire continent turned, for a month, into a single giant stage. On paper, it's the biggest World Cup in history. But the closer we get to kickoff, the harder one question is to ignore. This party. Who is it actually for? Because a tournament built to belong to everyone has become, match by match, something almost nobody can afford. For the first time in history, a World Cup is being played in 3 countries at once: the United States, Canada, and Mexico, from June 11th to July 19th, 2026. For the first time with 48 teams instead of 32. And for the first time, maybe, a World Cup arrives carrying more controversy than excitement. In this video, I'm not going to talk about results. I'm going to tell you how we got here and what it reveals. We'll start with a proposal from more than 10 years ago. The first piece in a chain that didn't just change the World Cup, but the very meaning of football on a global scale. Then we'll come to today. Prices worth an entire salary, doctors writing to FIFA about the heat, delegations denied visas, half-empty stadiums behind the sold-out slogan. And at the end, I'll ask you a question. I want your answer in the comments. How we got to 48 teams. To understand this World Cup, we have to go back. Quite a way back. It's October 2013. Inside FIFA, people are already talking about a tournament with more teams. But it's the president of UEFA, the European body, who floats the idea in public. In an interview, he proposes going from the 32 teams of the time to 40, adding slots for Asia, Africa, and the Americas. The stated logic is generous. There are more than 200 federations in the world. Why leave so many out? Let's make more countries happy. It sounds like footballing democracy. But to understand the move, you have to understand how power works inside FIFA. Every 4 years, the federations elect the president. And here's the mechanism that explains everything. 1 vote each. It doesn't matter that Brazil has won 5 World Cups and has over 200 million people. Its federation counts exactly as much as San Marino's, with its 30-odd thousand residents. 1 federation, 1 vote. Hold on to that detail because it's the key. In 2015, the corruption scandal that engulfs FIFA brings down the leadership. The president resigns just days after being re-elected. A power vacuum opens, and the most wide-open race in years. The winner is the Swiss Gianni Infantino, who campaigns openly on expanding the tournament. In January 2017, the final format is approved. 12 groups of 4, 48 national teams chasing the title. And here's the part the official announcements leave out. More slots mean more places for Africa, Asia, North America, more countries that used to watch the World Cup only on TV. But because every federation is worth 1 vote, promising access to dozens of smaller nations is also the most efficient way to build a winning coalition. The unwritten rule of international football, for decades, is simple. The more slots you hand out, the more federations vote for you. To win FIFA, you don't need to convince Europe. You need to convince the rest of the world. So the expansion is, at the same time, an act of openness and an exercise in power. And almost every contradiction we'll see today is born from that compromise. Who can still host a World Cup? Once the format was approved, a huge problem remained. Who can actually organize something like this? It sounds like a trivial question. It isn't. Hosting a World Cup today has become enormously expensive. Stadiums, transport, security, telecommunications, hotels, energy. To give you the scale, the 2022 World Cup in Qatar cost over $200 billion, a figure off the charts for almost any country. The result is that fewer and fewer nations can afford it alone. Europe struggles. South America couldn't do it by itself. Africa is effectively out, barring exceptional cases. And virtually no country on Earth has 16 stadiums already built to FIFA standards. So, to share the cost, the move is toward joint bids. It had happened only once before, and badly. The Korea-Japan edition of 2002, 2 countries close geographically, but far apart in culture, history, and language, who ended up arguing over who would host more matches. An experiment nobody had repeated until now. For 2026, the bids were the United States, Canada, Mexico, and Morocco. The three North American ones chose to join forces and split the costs and venues. A sensible choice, and a winning one. 134 votes in favor. United 2026 was born, the first World Cup hosted by three countries at once. And it's not a one-off. For 2030, an even more fragmented bid is already in, with matches split across multiple continents. The direction is clear. The World Cup has become too big for any single country to carry on its shoulders. America turns the World Cup into a product. And then there's what it really means to play in America. The United States isn't just hosting the World Cup, it's turning it into a product built for the American market. That happens in every country that hosts a big event. The local culture seeps into the show. But in the US, major sporting events are conceived in a fundamentally different way. In most of the world, at the stadium, the tension is the match. In the American model, the spectacle often matters more than the sport itself. Longer breaks, giant ceremonies, VIP experiences, corporate hospitality, ads everywhere, runaway prices. The risk, and it's not just us saying it, is that football loses part of its popular identity. That it stops being the people's game and becomes a kind of giant traveling Super Bowl. And into all of this steps a figure you can't ignore in an American World Cup, the US presidency. In recent years, FIFA's leadership has built a very close relationship with American political power. For a tournament that sells itself as belonging to the whole world, tying itself so visibly to the politics of one country is, in itself, a choice that carries weight. The most expensive World Cup ever. Now to the money, because this is where the promise of a tournament for everyone cracks the most. For the first time at a World Cup, FIFA has introduced dynamic pricing. Like airline tickets or concerts, the price isn't fixed. It climbs as demand rises. The result is numbers never seen before. Tickets for the July 19th final started around $6,730, and sales window after sales window climbed to about $10,990. The best seats go past $30,000, and on the official resale market listings have appeared in the six figures, some above $2 million. For perspective, at Qatar 2022, the most expensive ticket was around $1,600. Even a single match bites. The cheapest ticket still available directly from FIFA for the US opener is about $1,120, and on resale portals, the median price for that same match stays above $800. The reaction was a wave of protest. The European Fans Organization filed a complaint with the European Commission, arguing FIFA's corrections don't go far enough. In the US, the issue landed squarely in politics. The Attorneys General of New York and New Jersey, Letitia James and Jennifer Davenport, opened an investigation into sales practices after reports that fans were misled about where their seats actually were. And there's the most surreal moment of all. Even the president of the host country, asked about the price of a match, admitted that at those numbers he wouldn't pay either. When it's the host telling you the ticket is too expensive, something in the business model doesn't add up. The empty stadiums. And here's the visual paradox of this World Cup. FIFA talks about sold-out matches, but right at kickoff the numbers don't match. Roughly 180,000 tickets are still in circulation between the official platform and resale, around 25,000 of them directly on FIFA's portal. The US opener alone had over 4,400 seats still unsold just days before the start. Why? It's the flip side of dynamic pricing. If you push prices sky-high betting on huge demand and that demand doesn't show up, you end up with half-empty stands. Some have called it fake scarcity, manufacturing the feeling that tickets are running out to justify enormous prices, only to be left with empty sections. It's exactly the risk of a model designed to maximize revenue, not attendance. An empty stadium at a World Cup isn't just an image problem. It's a sign that the event built to be the biggest ever, risks pushing away the very people it's supposed to exist for. The heat. Then there's a problem that isn't FIFA's fault, but that FIFA had to deal with: the heat. Scientists have warned that 14 of the 16 stadiums could reach potentially dangerous temperature levels, well past 30 degrees Celsius in full daylight. And it's not theory. In 2025, during the new Club World Cup played in the US, several matches were postponed for storms, and the heat was severe enough to force breaks midway through each half just to drink and cool down. In the run-up to the tournament, a letter signed by dozens of players asked FIFA for stronger measures to protect health on the pitch. FIFA responded with 3-minute cooling breaks per half. Several scientists said it isn't enough, and that they should be at least doubled. The crux is kickoff times. Marquee matches are often scheduled in the middle of the day to suit TV audiences on other continents, Europe above all. Translated, they play in the hottest hours for the sake of ratings. Once again, money decides and health adapts. Visas, ice, and geopolitics. But to play in the United States, first you have to get in, and not everyone can take that for granted. The most striking case is Iran, qualified and drawn into Group G. On the eve of the tournament, the US denied visas to several members of the Iranian delegation, officials and federation staff, while the players got theirs only days before the first match. The conditions imposed are harsh. The team has to enter and leave US soil on the same day as each game. That's why the federation moved its base camp at the last minute to Tijuana, Mexico, across the border. And it has accused the US of revoking its ticket allocation for Iranian supporters. And Iran isn't an isolated case. Expanding the World Cup to 48 teams brought in nations from every corner of the world, including some the US has complicated diplomatic relations with. Among the CONCACAF qualifiers are countries like Haiti, Panama, and Curacao. Beautiful sporting stories, but also a reminder of how delicate it is to ask millions of people to enter a country with very strict immigration and visa policies. The paradox is obvious. Does it make sense to throw the whole world's party in a place where, for one reason or another, plenty of people aren't welcome? A World Cup has always been political too. We've known that for decades. But rarely has politics been this visible, this deep inside the organization, this able to decide who gets to be there and who doesn't. The host house that's shaking. Yeah. And then there are the problems with the stadiums themselves. The symbol is the venue of the opening match, the Estadio Azteca in Mexico City. The city is built on a drained, ancient lake and is sinking several centimeters a year because of groundwater extraction. The phenomenon is serious enough that even NASA, with its satellite radar, is monitoring the area around the stadium. After the post-renovation reopening in March 2026, some fans filmed chunks of concrete breaking away from the stands. There are also security concerns across 3 countries and 16 cities, including areas of Mexico marked by organized crime. In a setting this vast, guaranteeing the safety of millions of people is an enormous logistical challenge, another line of cost, and another risk in an already fragile tournament. The market's pulling away. And while prices climb, in some markets interest is falling. China, the largest football TV market in the world, around 200 million fans, only closed its broadcast rights deal after long negotiations and at a steep discount, about $60 million against the $300 million FIFA expected. Translated, a huge market generating far less than planned, partly because China, once again, didn't qualify. And then there's home. For the first time in decades, Italy failed to qualify, knocked out in the playoffs. Without the national team, interest and spin-off revenue collapse. Bars, restaurants, merchandising, electronics, tourism. But that, it has to be said, is a wound we inflicted on ourselves. So, who does football belong to? Let's pull the threads together. On one side, we have the biggest World Cup ever. More teams, more countries represented, more sporting stories we'll remember for years. There's a genuine expansion, and it's only fair to acknowledge it. On the other, a list of problems never seen all at once like this. A format expanded for the sake of consensus, runaway dynamic pricing, half-empty stadiums behind the sold-out slogan, heat warnings signed by doctors and players, delegations denied visas, official investigations, fan complaints in Brussels, stadiums literally shaking, and markets pulling away. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. It won't be a disaster in the sense that the matches won't happen. They will, and they'll thrill us. The real risk is something else, and it runs deeper, that this is the point of no return. The moment football definitively stops being a popular sport and becomes a global entertainment platform, where the fan matters less than the consumer, tradition less than engagement, the collective ritual less than the permanent event. And so the real question isn't, will the 2026 World Cup be a disaster? It's the one we started with. Who does football belong to today? Because the biggest bet of this World Cup isn't who lifts the trophy. It's what football becomes after they've finished playing it. This is the first episode of a series where we'll go deep, one topic at a time. The prices, the heat, the politics, the 48-team format. If you want to understand the 2026 World Cup beyond the usual coverage, subscribe. New videos every week for the whole tournament. And tell me in the comments, Festival of Football or missed opportunity. See you in the next one.